Welcome to No Question About That. I'm Ed today with Isabel. How's it going, Isabel?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing just fine, thank you. Doing better than Rasmus Hojlund, who is the topic of today's conversation, or maybe Rasmus Hojlund and Chido Obi, a bit of compare and contrast given their slightly different fortunes at the moment. What did you think? Let's start with Chido Obi. What do you think of his performance the other night when he came on and did 20 minutes of damage nearly against Fulham?
Yeah, do you know what? I thought he came on and looked pretty decent. I think there's a stat that came out. I think he had 3 big chances, as they call them, and Hojlund hadn't even had that in forever. So I think that's a positive. Definitely, he's definitely exciting, which is what you want your striker to be. He's definitely he's involved. Like I said, I mean, he had the chances, and that's exactly what we need at Manchester United, because at the minute Hojlund's just not involved. So if Obi does offer us that involvement, I'd be tempted to play him next over Hojlund.
Yeah, well, we would play him next over
Yeah.
Hojlund if the club had had the good sense to register him in the Europa League squad. Quite unbelievable. So I guess the question is, the one spare slot basically went to Jack Fletcher, who is a really good player, but he's not on the cusp of the first team at the moment, and we couldn't register him on the B list because something about not playing for 2 years or so seems like a very random rule to me. There you go. He's got 32 goals in 19 games for Arsenal last season. He's got 12 and 15 for United this season. They've kind of slowly moved him through the under 18s. He's not played even much under 21s football yet. The impression I always got of him when I'd seen him in the youth teams was that he was quite raw, but seemed to know where to be to score goals. Like, the passing's a bit untidy and he looks a bit gangly and untidy, doesn't he? And he's a big lad, but also needs to put on a bit of muscle. He just doesn't seem to quite fit in his body yet. But he's only 17, 18, whatever it is. Yeah. Just knows how to score goals, which was the surprise when he missed those 3 big chances, because honestly, the third one, you kind of thought, here comes the goal.
Yeah, I know. It was frustrating, but also, like I said, nice to just see him involved. And I definitely think that obviously he is young, and that's just, I mean, if he can progress, and he is going to progress. When you're coming in from the youth teams into, the great Manchester United, it's a big challenge, and he is going to be overwhelmed. And I mean, I just hope he can. I mean, if he can get a goal, obviously not in the Europa League, because that won't be happening, unfortunately. But no, if he can get some goals under his belt, I mean, that'd be great. Yeah. I think he looks decent.
Well, I get the feeling that Amorim must trust him, because he's gone through the ranks really quickly. I mean, clearly this was part of the promise in stealing him off Arsenal anyway, that he would be closer to the first team at United. He believed that. He's been throwing shade at Arsenal on social media, which is always a big plus, I think.
Yeah.
And so it feels like there's a lot of promise there. He definitely gets in the right positions, which is not what you could say of Josh Zirkzee. Never gets in the right positions. Or even Rasmus Hojlund, who spends the entirety of the game fighting with the centre-back. I mean, it's almost a parody at this point. Like, against Calvin Bassey, like one of the biggest, strongest centre-backs you could possibly face, he just spent the whole time giving him a hug. I'm just like, run anywhere, please.
I know. Just get involved and don't, Hojlund just can't. It's like I'm watching every game as it's going on, and I'm like, yeah, he's got this one. No, he's not got this one. And it's like, I actually do have hope for him, and I think he can do it. And then I'm just not seeing it, and it's frustrating, because I really do think there's a player in Hojlund. Is he going to be a world-class striker? That's, that I can't say that, no. But I definitely think there's a player there. We're just not seeing it, and it's kind of what is going wrong. He can't hold up the ball. Obviously, a lot of people have been speaking about, he's not great at bringing others into play, but I mean, he's not even getting the ball to bring others into play. So, I mean, that's just something that needs to be focused on, him holding up the ball. And I obviously, service is always an important thing, but as a striker, you've got to be strong. And I think he's strong, but he just isn't. He's not showing it. It's not working right now.
Well, I just think he needs to move more,
Yeah.
and he'll get more opportunities when he plays with space rather than playing with the defender. And he used to do that. And there's something Amorim suggested that it's a lack of confidence, and they've been working with him on the training ground. They said they'd been specifically working on the right kind of movements. If you look at how Gyökeres at Sporting scores his goals, are almost always inside the box. Right? He's not shooting from long range. He's getting in the right positions. He's scoring great goals. And you kind of look at the raw ingredients with Rasmus and you go, okay, there's something there. You feel like, I mean, remember when he scored, what was it, 7 in 7 at one point last season? And he was on for a record had he not got an injury, which sort of blighted that first season. I think he got 10 in 30 games or something like that last season. So he had a decent enough record for a young player in his first season in England. It's just gone backwards. I was looking at it here. He's not scored in 18 games. The last time he scored was against Victoria Pleasant in mid-December.
Yeah.
Time before that, he got one against Forest the game before that, and then he got a couple against Bodo Glimt. He's got 7 this season. They've come in a little. There's that patch of 5 goals in 4 games.
Yeah.
And it's been basically an absolute desert for the rest of the season. And I don't think service might be one thing, but you've got Bruno Fernandes there, who, if you move, will find you.
Yeah.
I just reading the stat today. Bruno Fernandes has created over 500 chances since he joined United. Right, like that's a player who's going to create you chances if you're not just standing still, having a cuddle with the centre back.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's so frustrating because, as you said, it feels like he's got some raw ingredients there and just almost never coming together at the moment.
That's it. It is frustrating. Like I said, there's definitely a player there. I think the difference, I mean, Obi came on and like, I mean, you've just been speaking about it, but he did create space for himself and he positioned himself quite nicely in between the centre halves, and Hojlund's not doing it. He's, like you said, I mean, he's practically hugging them. He's just not quite got it at the minute. Obviously, I think there's errors all over the pitch. I think it's not just, Hojlund's being bad and no one else is, because I do think it is a team effort. But as a striker, you've got to get yourself involved. And like you said, we do have the players like Bruno Fernandes to create chances. I mean, as well, Hojlund has had chances, and I know maybe they're not clear-cut chances, or maybe it's like a good chance, one good chance every 2 games. But as a striker, you've got to score these chances. You can't be fluffing the shot. you can't be doing it. So he does need to make sure he's definitely taking the chances that he gets, obviously, even if it is minimal.
He takes 1.47 shots per game, which is in the lowest percentile amongst forwards in the top 5 leagues. Like nerdy stat, but it's as bad as you can get for taking shots. And like, I know it's really basic, but if you don't shoot, you generally don't score goals. And so that is partly about service, partly about space, partly about making your own chances. Obi did that. What do we think about the rest of the season then? I mean, are we looking at trying to give Obi more and more chances, and so we can have an assessment and have a think about what the summer transfer business looks like? Because right now it looks like United need to go spend a load of money on a forward. We don't have a load of money. I see a lot of people like putting stuff out on Twitter about, well, if we're selling Sancho and we're selling Rashford, and that's £300 million of spending this window just in that. I'm like, yeah, but we owe 168 million in transfers going out and there's 0 cash in the bank. So it's like sell to buy, basically. So if Obi could do well this season, it might save us having to spend 60 million on a forward.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, because I know originally we were kind of looking at Hojlund as our young striker, and we needed to bring in, an experienced striker, but now it's sort of swapped around, and now Obi's actually the young striker and has to look at Hojlund. But it's just a bit of a mess, and I think now it's kind of, do we put our all into Obi? Part of me says yes, but obviously he's a young player. It's a lot of pressure. You can't rely on an 18-year-old. It's not fair to do that, especially as he's just making his debuts. He's not played enough for us to make a full decision on yet. It is sort of, okay, maybe this is the player that we're going to have to really put our all into and actually work on him over Hojlund. But it's going to be interesting to see how Amorim deals with it, whether he gives Obi a start. I mean, obviously, I think when that happens, that will be important match for him and for Amarim, to see which striker he wants. I think soon as Obi gets that one start, it'll either be Obi or Hojlund. I still think now it's probably Hojlund over Obi because, he's, like I said, he's young and he's not had the experience yet. But I don't know. I'd be tempted to play Obi.
Yeah, look, it's Manchester United tradition, isn't it, to give the young players a chance and the crowd would get behind him.
Oh, 100%.
And they were behind Rasmus Hojlund. I mean, there was that one weird thing with Josh Zirkzee against Newcastle where there was some weird jeers. And ever since then, Old Trafford has been really supportive of him. And I think he's getting profiled better now, Josh Zirkzee. He's not a number 9, so he's playing deeper. I'm still not very convinced about him. But he was Young Player of the Year in Italy last season. There's something more than he's giving us right now. And I think the same is true of Rasmus Hojlund. There's definitely, as we said, the ingredients there for a striker. It's just not coming together. I do wonder if he hadn't cost £70 million, 64 plus bonuses, the club might be looking to sell. There's apparently this philosophy that Barada has his philosophy, the CEO, that you have 2 years. And if you haven't made it by the end of your 2 years, that's basically evidence that the club needs to move on. And I wonder whether the club might be thinking about it if he didn't have such a massive fee attached, which means he's got a really high book value, which means that we need a really high fee to not take a loss in PSR terms. And that really does matter, really matters for United. So given our chances of European football next season are quite small, I would say. So it looks like, from as long way of saying, we're probably stuck with Rasmus next season and adding another striker. And should that be Obi? Should that be an experienced striker? Should we blow all our budget? It's a big test for United this summer.
Yeah, and also I think with that, like you said, we just don't really have the money to be spending. And also with that, we've got to make sure we, if we do go out and we do spend our budget on this striker has to work out at Manchester United. We can't afford to lose that amount of money on another striker. So it would be a big risk. That's my only thought of perhaps why they won't do it, because I think they think we can work on Hojlund, which part of me agrees with. Part of me, I agree with that thing that you said. I mean, 2 years, it is enough time. I think a player does have to prove, themselves in that time. So it's an interesting one, and it will. I think that the transfer window this summer will be interesting because I just don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. You can't predict it, I don't think.
Well, yes, it's going to have to take some really creative deal making, I think, from United, and a lot depends on both our European participation or not, and whether Aston Villa take up that option on Marcus Rashford, which would free up some headroom in the wages and provide some income, at least for a short term, at least. Yeah, I mean, I think United just profiled Hojlund wrong. Right, he just wasn't ready to come to a club and be the starting player. And we paid, unfortunately, way too much money for a player who really should have been a development project. I mean, Obi's 3-4 years younger, but they're thinking about a pathway for him. And it won't be, let's chuck you into the first team. You get 90 minutes every week straight away, and we expect you to score goals. It'll be bit by bit. Well, unless he's sensational, of course, which could happen. Yeah. And again, it's just like just another example of poor planning and thinking from United. And this was the one that they'd scouted and they were really sure of, and it was John Murtaugh signing, and we'd finally got a director of football and we were doing things better. And oh no, apparently not.
I know we thought it was all going to work out at one point, but that's just not really the way it goes at Manchester United, is it?
I mean, once upon a time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. For us of the slightly older generation, we remember United being good. I remember United being bad, so that's why I can be sanguine about now and just kind of laugh it off. Got to have some gallows humour, because I don't think any of us saw it getting this bad.
No.
And part of that is on, I mean, a lot of it is on United's decision making over a decade, and that's why you're saying if they buy a striker, it's got to be right. I mean, anyone they buy, it's got to work out. They just can't afford any mistakes anymore.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm just wondering whether they'll, I said it already, but whether they'll just they'll take the risk. I honestly would like to see us, work on Obi. I think young players. I mean, like you said, Manchester United, they love bringing in the youth, and I definitely think, do it. Why not? I mean, if you've got these players who aren't costing you that much money, obviously as of now, why not work on them? If we can get Obi up and running, and I definitely think there's talent there and potential. I mean, if he came on and I thought he looked good in how long did he play? I think it was about 20 minutes.
20 minutes against Fulham, yeah.
Yeah. I thought he looked decent. Like I said, he was involved, and so definitely if he can do that in 20 minutes and look decent, have a couple chances, there's a player there, 100%. We've just gotta work on it, get him involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, he appears to be training with the first team now. He's part of the setup. He's been on the bench 3 times in a row. He's got a couple of sub appearances. Is it 3? Can't remember. He had one of about 2 minutes, one of about 10, and one of about 20, right?
Yeah.
So working our way up. Be interesting after this game, because obviously you can't play against Sociedad because, or La Real, as I should call them, because the club is stupid. We screw everything up all of the time without fail.
Yep.
But then there's Arsenal at the weekend. That'll be interesting, playing his old club. And then I think it's Leicester away, and then there's a big gap. They've got like 2 weeks off because we're at the Cup now. And so that's time for training, time to fix these problems, time to hopefully create a system that creates some chances for these forwards to score, maybe. So there was another Arsenal player who came on, Aidan Heaven, ex-Arsenal player, I should say, who did pretty well as well. I wonder if they've got any midfielders we can steal, since they're now our feeder club for youth players.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd look at any youth player. I think, like I said, I like bringing in the youth. They're cheaper, and also a lot of them really want it and they really go for it. I mean, we've seen it with Ahmad, Garnacho. We're now seeing it with Obi. They want it and they will perform. Obviously, if they might not perform like really, really good, but they're definitely going to go for it and be involved. So I'd be taking Arsenal's youth players. Yeah.
There he goes. Steal them all.
Yeah, I'll have them all.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Hungry, desperate for success. Eric Ten Hag called modern players soft last week when he did his interview with his own agency. So, I mean, it wasn't a hardball interview or anything like that. And he was kind of blaming the players for his own failings, but he called them soft. And I suppose there's something in that. Young players, their first big professional contract will get them a lot of money. I mean, life-changing amounts of money. That didn't used to be the case. I mean, Obi will be on a youth contract now, but when he signs his first professional one in a year's time or so, it's probably going to be decent money. And then, you can go out and buy the fast cars and get a nice house, and you got all this stuff, and you're still a kid that's been like kind of involved in football probably since he was 7 or something like that, 6 or 7. And they've known nothing else, and sometimes they behave stupidly like Alejandro Garnacho did the other week. It's minor stuff, right? And you just hope they grow as players and humans to be everything they can be. And that's the worry with these young players, that we just have too bigger expectation on them straight away, and the pressure's on, and suddenly they have a couple of bad games, and all the fan channels like the ones that you do and I do will be getting on their back and complaining they haven't scored yet, and so on.
Yeah, it's true. It is. I mean, the fans are very, very critical. I think majority of us are critical in a good way. I mean, I don't want to be horrible to the players. I think it's constructive criticism, I'll call it. But no, I mean, the young players, they want it, and like you said, I mean, they want the big contract, which is fair enough.
Hey, we'd all play for United if we were good enough, right?
Yeah.
My days behind me. What about you? Are you any good at football?
No.
Fair enough.
I've not tried it. Maybe I'll try it.
Maybe. Why not? Go play for your uni side.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll leave it there. Rasmus Hojlund, Chido Obi. We need one of them to start scoring goals, and it would help if it started on Thursday. Quite a big game for United, this one. Very important. Well, there's hope, I guess. Rasmus has a good record in Europe, both his seasons, actually. And Chido has just a good record at every level so far. So maybe, touch wood, it gets better. All right, we'll leave it there. Isabel, plug your channel.
It's called Talk About United.
Very good. Find her on YouTube. You can find this on all podcast apps or YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching. Catch you next time. Bye now.